The Dot Podcast, bridging the gap between our real world and online selves, with your host, Copus Mileni and Erica Lisa.
Podcast. So we created a podcast to explore this zone. Hey everybody, I'm sorry the first few minutes of this episode did not record properly. I'm still trying to learn the technical aspects of connecting with people all over the globe without bringing them into the studio. So unfortunately, there was a few minutes of content that I had to delete due to audio issues. However, I'd say if you want to really dive into Virgo season, you should check out the Spiritual Gangsta Certified podcast and get the details from her, because really, we're beginners in this astrology thing, and you're going to get a much better comprehensive understanding of Virgo season if you listen to her podcast. So with that being said, it was still a pretty awesome episode. We got most of it. I appreciate you guys dealing with these growing pains here with me and Erica. We are working things out, and I got some exciting announcements to make soon. But anyhow, hope you enjoy this episode, and please remember to subscribe and leave a comment. It really does help. All right, guys, have a great one. Peace.
Number one, what I'm grateful for, and that I already have, and then number two, what I'm grateful for that I want to bring into fruition. So that, I think, is a great routine for people to get into, because we get so upset about the things that are going on in our lives. There are distractions. There are people annoying us. Work can be stressful. So we sometimes focus our thoughts more so on what we don't want. You know what I mean? And then you're bringing more of the same to you. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's a hard thing to really be honest with yourself about, because I feel like a lot of people, when you had a few years, you've been into spirituality for 6 years now, and during that time, we almost kind of adopt these mantras in our mind, like, okay, I attract things to myself. I'm a positive person is one I like to say, but I know that that's a daily reprieve. Like there's days where I wake up and I'm saying I'm a positive person, but the real, if I go deeper underneath those thoughts, I might be really concerned. I might be an anxious person. I might be a person that's living out of the present and projecting my past into my future. And that's to me, that's always been my roughest challenge. And I think anybody that has lived a life that wasn't always spiritual, you have all those years prior, and those are still something you could draw from in a good way sometimes. Exactly. But sometimes in a bad way, because we develop bad habits before we develop better habits. And it's like when you're playing sports, a lot of times they say the best student is an athletic person that never played the sport before, because they don't have bad habits. You could walk in and you could teach them, technique, the right technique. They haven't already developed, the wrong way to, say if you're playing basketball, the wrong way to, do a jump shot. They haven't developed a funky way of doing it. So you can teach them, true technique. And the same, I think, is with spirituality, because I had the blessing of working with a lot of young kids at one point in a metaphysical church. I was working with a youth group, and these kids were so powerful because they grew up with it. Their parents, indoctrinated them into this way of living, where I had a good, 25 years of nonsense that I still had to process through in order to, find my true self. So a lot of times I might be, claiming I'm a positive person, or, I got my mind right and I'm spiritual, but I still have a lot of this past that's, playing. And I like I like the ideas of rituals because, they keep you grounded and they keep you, you know, you remind yourself. You remind yourself where you're at, and that every day, it does. You do need to start over. You can't let up.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another important aspect to what you're saying is we sometimes don't accept what's going on with us. And that is big issue. Like you were saying, like you can wake up and tell yourself a million times, I'm a positive person, I'm a positive person. But if subconsciously you're not really feeling that, there's an issue. So I encourage people, I call it kind of like embracing your darkness. So even, you know what I mean? Even though it's important to have that positivity and really think and speak into existence what you want, you have to really get in tune with what it is that is going on underneath things. Because, and this is something that I've just been learning. I've been looking at like Kabbalic magic and different things. I just have a wide range of interests. And one of the things that they said, and it struck me, it like hit me in the face. They said that all creation, all magic is simply sexual. And at first I was like, what? And then I thought about it. What they're saying is your conscious mind, that's running all the stories of your programming and everything, your daily ups and downs. Oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that. That would represent like a masculine force. Okay.
All right.
And your subconscious mind would represent a feminine force. So that's the stuff that's going on the undercurrent, because, masculine energy is more of a, I would say go for it energy, while feminine energy is more receptive. So when you put those two things together, creation happens. So if your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are not in alignment, what are you going to create? They have to be in alignment to get what you want. So that goes back to saying, okay, I wake up in the morning and I say, I'm a positive person, I'm a positive person, I'm a positive person. But if at the core of yourself you're not feeling positive, then you're not manifesting that positivity. Your subconscious mind has a lot to do. Think about it. A woman will carry a baby. So, yeah, okay, the man was important. He helped to to make the baby. But who's carrying and birthing the child?
Right.
It's the same thing with whatever you're trying to, put into motion. So subconscious mind is what we've got to deal with. So we have to face that darker inner portion of ourselves in order to really be able to truly bring to light what we want. So that's how I look at it.
So you say that feminine energy is receptive, and if it's not there to nurture your thoughts, then you're going to have some still births. You're not really going to
yes
actually create.
You put it so.
That's interesting, and I mean I got a follow-up question because
Sure.
It's got me thinking, like, well, how do you make yourself receptive to these things you want inside your life if perhaps you got that friction going on between what you're saying you desire and what you might be ready to actually proceed with or embrace?
Well, part of it, some people have had a lot of success with this portion. It'll sound counterintuitive at first, but remember I was talking about embracing your darkness. You want to kind of, for a minute, be really, really honest with yourself. So what happens is, okay, let's say that your goal is to leave a job that you don't like and get a better job.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure we've all kind of been there before.
I'm going through that
A lot
right
of us
now.
will just go, okay, I understand, believe me. But a lot of us will just focus on, okay, well, I know I need this new job. I know I need this new job. I've got to think about that. No. What is making you want that new job? Why don't you like the job that you're in? Face that. Deal with it. Accept it. Know that if you're unhappy where you are, it means you're not in alignment with your highest good. So once you're able to do, it's like a circle. It's a 360-degree process. You really got to become conscious. You have to bring into the conscious mind what's in your subconscious mind. So that means you really got to meditate on it and think about it. And why are you unhappy? What's causing me to have this stress at work? And then you can break down into little sections. If this is another thing that Virgo season would be great for, is to kind of like compartmentalize and break down into little boxes exactly what the issue is. Once you're able to digest that, then you're better able to use your subconscious mind. So that's what I think you have to do. You kind of got to get to the root of the unhappiness, and then you can focus on the positivity and try to marry that together, with your subconscious thoughts.
Now, Illy, can I ask you a question real quick? Regarding that?
Sure.
What, regarding that?
Sure.
So do you think that perhaps if you have a partner that you can talk to about things that are truly bothering you, like, do you feel like you can only meditate on it, or do you think that you could, like, discuss it with your partner? I'm pretty open, so I like to talk about every little detail, every little thing that's driving me nuts sometimes, and I notice that helps me. Mm-hmm. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah. If you're in the type of relationship with someone where that openness is encouraged, because, there's people who they talk to their mate about things and then feel terrible afterwards because it wasn't received well. But if you're in a positive and healthy relationship where you can express yourself, I think that's a great thing, because what's happening is you're hearing yourself say it, you're receiving feedback on what you're talking about, and that does help with the emotional processing of everything. So yeah, I would agree. If you need to talk to someone that you trust that is really in tune with the fact that you need to get things out and make sense of them, by having conversations, then certainly do that.
Cool. I just thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
Illy, can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
What has been like your in this journey from 2012 to 2018? What's been your deepest challenge with your spirituality inside the last 6 years?
Okay. Well, this is a complicated answer, but I do not mind sharing. So, but I didn't really know anything about astrology prior to 2012 other than I was a Pisces. My mom's a Pisces. This person's a Leo. But what happened was I had been in a relationship for 10 years with a person that I had 4 children with.
Wow. And
during that time, things were rocky. I can honestly say I wasn't happy. The person was manipulative. They had a secret drug problem that they hid, and then it just got out of control and it couldn't be contained anymore. There was violence. And I'll say on both parts, because I never looked at myself as being a battered woman, because if you hit me, I was going to hit you back. That type of situation.
Sure.
Right.
But, no one deserves to go through that. And when I decided to end that situation at the end of 2008, my then mate told me he was going to make my life a living hell. And he proceeded to do just that. Everything that you could imagine that a person could do to you, in a vindictive, mean way, got done to me. I mean, from property destruction to more violence. This person actually choked me in front of my children until I passed out because I didn't invite them to my birthday party. Like, it was...
That is an intense
It was
person.
extraordinarily...
That's
yeah,
horrible.
it was really, really rough. And at the time, because it just seemed like a series of terrible events kept happening. And when I started picking up astrology, I noticed there's something, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of someone having a Saturn return.
I haven't.
Does that
Tell
sound
me
familiar
about
to you
that.
guys?
No, I haven't heard of it either.
Okay, so basically, in your chart, like you guys know, that you're individually a Pisces and a Virgo, you have a whole birth chart where you might have other placements in other signs. Just to give you an example, I'm a Pisces because the sun was in Pisces when I was born, but I'm also a Capricorn moon and I'm a Libra rising. And I hope I can have you guys on my show, and I'll do your charts for you.
Oh my gosh.
And,
I know a little bit. I know I'm a Leo rising as well. I've gotten that far, but as far as like my moon, someone might have told me before, but I never like really followed up. But I know I really connected with the Leo rising because that's like kind of the impression that you give off, right?
Yes, it's the first impression that you make to others. So, along with all those other placements, you also have a placement of Saturn. Now, Saturn is the planet that likes order. It likes to restrict. It rules law, time. It wants to build structure. And it is basically the ruler of the sign Capricorn. So if you know any Capricorns, the energy that it kind of lets off is it's kind of more stern and organized and hardworking.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. So when Saturn returns to the exact point in the sky, in the sign that it was in when you were born, you have what's called a Saturn return. Now, granted, this only happens every 27.5 to 29 years. So your first Saturn return is usually around the age of maybe 27 to about 30.
Yeah.
And people report it as a time where just everything just completely goes crazy. So I'm saying this to say that rough time that I had when I left that abusive relationship, as it turns out, when I started studying astrology, I realized, oh my gosh, this was my Saturn return. Everything about my life that I thought was one way completely changed. It was like destruction to rebuild. It was the hardest stuff I've ever been through in my life. I'm actually writing a book about it. But I emerged a completely different person, and I wouldn't change a thing. Even with all the hard stuff, all the painful stuff, it doesn't matter. I was supposed to go through that to be who I am now. And it's totally in my birth chart. It's so funny now that I understand all this stuff, to be able to look back on that time frame, because it didn't feel good when I was going through it, believe me. It was just kind of like, what's going to happen next? I mean, my ex used to steal my car. He had a key to it, so he'd take it and then put it back to make me think I was crazy. All types of stuff.
So that's a
interesting.
10-year relationship, and I've been inside some bad relationships myself, never as long. But I'm just kind of curious, was that because I also been with in a relationship with someone where drugs were an issue. Erica here has also. We've been through that. Is this a did the drugs kind of like turn things super sour towards the end? Did you have happy times in the beginning?
There were happy times.
So
he was funny. I like to laugh. So if you can make me laugh, you've got my attention. But what I think also was I was really naive. I entered a relationship with him when I was 19. Now, Granted, I'm a little advanced in that I got out of high school just after turning 17. But still, I mean, you're not mature enough to recognize things. And I'd never been around anybody that had a problem with drugs or alcohol, really. That's not something that I experienced growing up. So I didn't know what to look for. When I would see things that appeared a little bit off, I kind of feel like I just brushed them off because I didn't want to believe
Lily, I can
what
relate.
was going on. But
I can relate to you in that situation, sure, because I'd never, although my past is like a really crazy past, like I was a adult film star and I was in strip clubs and I was like all put around drugs and things like that really young, but I didn't really do anything. Mm-hmm. When I was dating a drug addict, I had no idea, like, oh, this is a drug addict. I didn't know, like, you don't know. Like, if you've never been around it, you really don't know, and you can get manipulated and tricked into all kind of things, or, take their back, even though you don't, like, they're really secretly out doing other things. It's, like, a horrible situation to be in. And then when you find out, it's just so devastating. You're just like, what do you mean? I didn't, it's almost like you're just like,
it's confusing,
what? Yeah,
right?
it's super confusing. I can sympathize with you in that aspect because it's a...
Manipulation in itself is confusing. And if you're around someone who, when I was young, I was a drug addict. I went through recovery and, in my early 20s. But you learn manipulation as a drug addict. So you become good. It's almost like a currency. It's something you have to know as a survival technique. and it's very confusing. And I'm very happy for you that you got through all of that. But an interesting question that I got for you, because you saw it all inside your life path, and that question has to do with free will. See, so all this seems like it was almost predetermined in a way, because how do you feel about free will when you do look at these patterns that are almost impossible to ignore? When the deeper you get into like a birth chart, and you start to see like, wow, you're right, this was supposed to happen during this time. How do you feel about the concept of free will? Do we really have a chance to change our destinies, or is this just something that we're supposed to go through?
I love that you asked me that, because what I've come to believe through a lot of different study and things are that the reason why you can look at a birth chart and kind of look at it as like I don't want to say a manual, but I guess you could look at it as a person's operating system.
Yeah.
Like if you have a Mac computer, you can't do anything Windows based on it.
Sure.
That doesn't mean you can't use the computer. That doesn't mean you can't like do graphic work or write a paper. You just have to work within the framework of, the Macintosh operating system. So I kind of look at astrology's correlation to life in the same way, in that I look at it like all of our souls, which are energy that can't be destroyed or created. They've always been. We've lived multiple lifetimes. We collectively get together in our little soul groups, and we decide we're going to have an experience. We predetermine that we want to have an experience doing a certain thing or learning a certain thing. So we decide when to incarnate. That's what your birth chart will tell you. It'll tell you what energy is present at the moment that you incarnate. However, and I've read a lot of different things on this that kind of bring it home, it's been said you don't have this exact remembering of everything that you know from before you came in this incarnation. So that forgetting is essential. Because if you remembered everything, I've lived 3,000 different lifetimes and I did blah, 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 blah. I mean, you'll know at a soul level. That's why you have deja vu at different times, or you feel drawn to people and it's inexplicable. It's more than likely because you've had contact with them, in previous lifetimes. But you still have the free will choice to either work with the energy you've been given or work against it. So that's how I kind of reconcile that, because I'll give you an example. I told you guys I'm a Pisces sun. I have a Capricorn moon. The moon doesn't like being in Capricorn. That's actually like kind of what would be called a negative placement for the moon. So it's interesting. I can shut my emotions off like they're nothing, even though I'm an emotional Pisces. Like if I get upset, I just go resting bee face really quickly.
Really?
And I can like switch everything. Yeah, like it's such an interesting combination.
That's hard.
It is, because I feel everything so deeply, but I have my Capricorn moon makes it so that I can structure my emotions in such a way that it's almost like I turn them off, or you can't tell what's going on inside of me.
That could be
additionally,
helpful.
I wanted to tell you, I'm sorry?
I said that could be very helpful in certain situations.
It is, but I've learned to work with my moon, because what would happen is I would just suppress. Like something would upset me. You never know. Never know. There could be a whole cauldron bubbling under the surface with me, and nope, you never know. And I'd still just be going about, caring about people, because I'm also a Libra rising. So Libra's about, it's a social sign per excellent. It wants to interact with other people. It wants to, float about here and enjoy the beauty in life. Meanwhile, my Capricorn moon is like, I've had enough peopling for today.
Okay.
I need to kind of. So
that's the yin and the yang inside you there, yeah.
Like you can see how portions of yourself that seem to kind of conflict are reconciled. And I wanted to also say, even though I just told you all those placements, I'm Virgo dominant in my chart, which means I have the majority of Virgo energy in the rest of my planets. I have Mars in Virgo, Jupiter in Virgo, Saturn in Virgo, Lilith in Virgo, and then I have a sixth house sun. Virgo runs the sixth house. So even though I'm a Pisces, which is Virgo's opposite sign, I have a lot of Virgoan tendencies. So when I'm looking at my birth chart, what this will tell me for my free will is, hey, you're very analytical about things. You like to separate what's necessary from what's not. You're also very loving and see the oneness of everything, which is that Piscean energy. So what that'll tell me is, knowing my birth chart, if I'm having moments where I'm feeling a little bit lost, I can understand my energy by studying it. So, remember I was saying all signs have good sides and bad sides?
Yes.
Piscean energy is great because it's so loving, but we can also be prone to escapism and we can be easily fooled because we look at people as such good people. And that's what I think I was relying on during that 10 years that I spent with that person, where I didn't see what was right in front of me.
Right.
It was just like a mist.
Also,
over everything.
having the ability to close your emotions off probably helped you endure that period for a lot longer than you would have if that moon wasn't in placement.
Exactly.
That's so
It would just be like, oh, okay. Like, let's say, for instance, he used to take stuff. I'd come home and there'd be an Xbox gone. I remember I came home, my entire DVD collection was just gone. If it hadn't taken me years.
My situation was like that too. I came home from Easter and he came in and robbed my house just because I wasn't home.
Wow.
It's the same thing,
I'm so sorry you know what that's like.
I'm actually not. I'm happy I know what it's like because I definitely know what I don't want. I don't ever want that again.
That's an interesting point.
So I'm happy. I went through some gnarly stuff, and I've had my chart done before, and they say I'm a triple Pisces. I'm also a 999 in numerology. So.
Oh my goodness! 9's the number of completion.
Which is like, I don't know. I think it's some. I don't know much about it, but I think you can either be the angel or the devil. It's like you're like a dichotomy or something, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm correct on that. You would know more than me. But I'm actually happy every single bad thing that I went through in my lifetime has only made me look at things at a totally different perspective. Like, oh, okay, well, now I know what that's like. Am I going to do that again? No. Or do I like the people like that? No. And it's easy for me to recognize it, where before maybe I might have spent way too much time in a situation because I was younger and I didn't know. But with maturity and age and life experience, you can see that danger and just go, no, thank you. Or, oh, this is fun, but no. Or they seem fun, but that's dangerous. I don't know. Because I like to have fun. I don't know.
Right,
but
something cautions you.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre, I think. But I don't know if you feel that way. If you feel like, oh, I'm glad I went through all this.
She just
said
she
did. You did say
I'm glad. I'm glad I did. It just, for some reason, I guess it's that the Pisces energy in me is like, I don't like to see other people hurting. So when I hear, anybody that went through something similar, I feel like a pang in my heart. Like, I would take on that for the entire world if I could, so nobody would have to feel like that. But I do understand it had its purpose. It had its place, and there's no way every single stone that led to this path, if it hadn't gone this way, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't know the things that I know. I probably wouldn't have embraced spirituality the way that I did. And you said something, Erica, that really stuck out. You've taken that experience to determine what you don't want. Can you imagine if it took you like 6 or 7 guys to learn what you did from one? There's a blessing hidden there.
True, and I learned different things from each one I didn't want. But
True. But understandable. But like, it could have been so much, like it could have just been so much worse. So I'm glad that you're able to take a lot from that. And, it made you very discriminating, which is this Virgo season theme, about what you'll accept and what you want. And you know what else I wanted to tell you? You should really pay attention to anything Virgoan as a Pisces. Just as in the opposite spectrum, you should pay attention to Pisces energy as a Virgo. And here's why. They're opposite signs, and opposite signs are basically the same energy at different poles.
I see.
So, like, if we were talking about temperature, and you were like, oh, I'm so hot, and then I'm on this side like, oh, I'm so cold, could we really come together and name the exact degree where hot and cold, like, ended? Hot ends, cold begins, etc., we probably couldn't do that. So another thing in astrology is to pay attention to the opposing energy. We just had, I don't know if you guys know, but on Sunday we had a full moon in Pisces. Oh. And it was opposite the sun in Virgo. And opposites are about balance. So it's about finding balance. So when you're looking at, and hopefully I got to get you guys on the show so we can do some astral chart personally for you. You know, when you can look at your opposing sign, you can actually see parts of yourself there. So where Virgo is more like, okay, I'm analytical. I'm not going to really look at the big picture. I'm going to look at the details. Pisces energy still wants to look at the whole of things, but they're both about serving. Like Virgo energy is very service-oriented energy, but so is Pisces. Like we see humanity as, you know, we can love everybody. Everybody has worth. It's just about finding a balance, you know, between those two things. Do you want to focus on the details or the big picture? So that's really what those two energies are about. They're on the same axis. They're just different ends of the scale.
Me and Erica are actually, you know, in a relationship, and I'm a Virgo, and she's a Pisces.
Cool. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you, you know, more that I pay attention to her because I can see inside her, you know, what I'm missing inside me. And in all of my pursuits, I love to get her opinion on things because it's usually what I'm overlooking. And
yes,
I've always had some Pisces in my life. Like, you know, I was kind of raised, you know, partially by my grandmother, who passed away, God rest her soul, but she was a Pisces, and ever since, you know, I was a young boy, having Pisces energy around me has been very important in terms of navigating through life, and as you said, in terms of being service-oriented, I feel like when I'm around Pisces, I'm more prone to being a service-oriented person. I come from a place of service more. Because maybe it's like you said, I can feel the energy feels more complete in terms of like, okay, this is what we need to do in order to help this situation, or this is the person we should be reaching out to right now for this. It just feels great, and it's interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting. So
it's also interesting.
Yeah, you just blew my mind there.
Yeah, that was really cool. Also, Ilya, I have to say it's so interesting because I was super drawn. I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but the moon on Saturday and Sunday, I was so just like, look at that moon. Oh my gosh, Ken, look at this moon. It's so crazy. Like, and I just was staring and staring at it. It was like kind of almost like, oh my gosh, I really like this thing. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that, or I don't know.
Oh, there's probably a lot of reasons for that, especially you said as a triple Pisces. My goodness. So the moon was full at its fullest at like 3 degrees of Pisces. Depending on the degrees of your moon, your rising, and your sun sign, that means the full moon impacted you. It conjuncted. A conjunction in astrology would mean when a planet, and for the sake of argument, I know that the sun and moon aren't planets, but in astrology, we refer to the sun and moon as planets. So they were literally interacting with energetic parts of you. And the same thing was actually happening to Virgos too, because, okay, the sun is in Virgo. So during Virgo season, you're going to feel a lot more energized. But that Pisces moon was the opposite energy that they needed. Matter of fact, to put it even more simply to you, for a Virgo, the Pisces moon probably had them look a little bit more into their relationships.
Oh.
You know, how they relate to other people, and, you know, really just being able to experience the emotions there. And for Pisces, by the time it's Pisces season, there's going to be a Virgo full moon, because that's the way it works. Full moons always happen in the opposite sign of where the sun is. So by the time Pisces season rolls around in 2019, you're going to have basically the same thing happening, in that there's going to be a full moon, and full moons are a culmination of things coming to fruition. It's like the best way to describe it, I guess, would be like it's that point of release, because everything's gotten to where it needs to be for the moment, and you're allowed to release. So when you feel drawn to the moon like that, like I am, I definitely was too. I know you were energetically impacted by that. And the nosy astrologer in me is like, oh my gosh, I still want to look at their charts to see exactly what was hitting what, because there were some other things going on too. We've got six planets in retrograde, Mars. Yeah, there's all types of stuff is going on. But
was Saturn out by chance or something? Did you see did you look at the moon? Because I actually saw the moon, and then I saw a hot red or orange little thing by it.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Across from it. I didn't know what it was. And I said, Ken, what is it? Or Copus, what is this, you know? And he's like, I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew what it is, but I could see it.
I hear you. Well, you know what? I actually have to look that up, because usually I know we can see Venus early in the morning, but Mars, if I'm not mistaken, just went direct on Monday, but I'm trying to figure out if that was the planet that was close. I'm thinking that it was. It usually doesn't get that close that often. So the fact that you were able to see it, I hope you were able to take pictures, because that had to be beautiful.
I didn't take any pictures. I sometimes don't take pictures of that because I have the picture in my mind.
Switching gears.
Oh, okay. Well, I can respect that. I can definitely respect that. But that conjunction of things, too, would have to do with what was going on in your chart. A lot of people use full moons to kind of release stuff that they no longer need, which I think is perfect for Virgo season, because remember, we're trying to determine, okay, what do I have to work on? What's extra? What's superfluous? What do I not need? And then you have this full moon in Pisces, which was like an emotional release, because remember, Pisces is that water sign energy that is changeable. We can go with the flow. We're represented by two fishes going in opposite directions, so we can easily pull one way or the other. And it's a beautiful energy. So I'm so happy to hear that you enjoyed the full moon in Pisces, because it really was a beautiful sight and a beautiful feeling.
It was gorgeous, and it felt right. Switching gears real quick, because I know you're a hip hop head, and I know you have these astrological superpowers, because you could dive into people's birth charts. Have you ever done that to any of like your favorite rappers? Like just looked at their birth date and figured out, this makes so much more sense because they're a Pisces or they're a Virgo. I know the rappers that are Virgos, or at least I know Luda's a Virgo. I know Dougie Fresh is a Virgo. Who else is a Virgo? There's a couple others. I don't know.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I'm trying to go off the top of my head too.
Okay.
Yeah. Nas. I believe Nas is a Virgo.
Nas is September 14th. He shares a birthday with Amy Winehouse, who I have a deep connection to. Like my moon conjuncts her moon. She's a Capricorn. She was a Capricorn moon too. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because what we just started on my podcast with this wonderful, wonderful spiritual, I call her one of my spiritual leaders. She runs something called Shula Chakras. Her name is Nikki. Mm-hmm. And we actually, I don't know if you guys remember the group or know the group, The Outsiders.
Oh, yeah.
They're from New Jersey.
Yeah, from New Jersey.
Yeah. So,
I remember them, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So Pacewan, I know him when I first started my blog site, when I was just going to write about like music and random stuff. He let me interview him, and I asked him recently, I was like, hey, can you come on my show and we do your chart? And he was like, sure. So that's actually forthcoming. That's an idea that I actually had. And there's another girl that's awesome.
They had that project called Nightlife, did they? Was Outsiders Nightlife, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah. And when was that? It was probably like early 2000s. I was actually really into that project. Pace One, they always had a very distinctive style. So what did you learn about Pace on your podcast?
Well, When I pull this chart, and just so you guys know, I'm such an astro nerd that I actually have an app in my phone where at a drop of a dime, if someone gives me their birth time, date, and place, I'm on it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
The
cool.
first thing, yeah, look, matter of fact, I'm just going to pull it up and look at it real quick because I still have it in my phone. But one of the first things I noticed is why we became such good friends, number one. Because it's weird. I used to rap for years, and then I stopped because I got really negatively impacted by what was going on around me. Like, there were too many people trying to pull me in different directions. I mean, I started rapping when I was 12. Oh, and, you know, people, oh, you need to be more naked. Oh, you need to be more this. Oh, you need to be more that. And I was just like, it got to be too much by the time I was around 18. So it's the weird part about it was I remember seeing him on TV and feeling kind of drawn to him. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know why at all. Like, I think the first time I ever saw him was during, do you remember the Fugees album, The Score? They had this song called Cowboys.
Yeah.
And he opens up the song. Yeah, he's the first person actually that spits a verse.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, I'm like, I never gave any second thought to that, you know, over the years. But, like, I actually met him, like, through a business thing. And I'm like, wow, my Mars is conjunct his Virgo sun at 0 degrees. He's a 0 degree Virgo, which is the first degree of Virgo. So, like, we kind of had an interaction that I didn't understand. So when I pulled his chart and I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And then also he has the asteroid Chiron, which is the wounded healer. It speaks to us about where we'll have our Achilles heel. Uh-huh. You know, a wounding in us that we need to overcome to be better. He has it in his third house of communication. So he releases through his music. That's why it was relatable to me. So when I'm looking at the chart, I'm like, oh my God. Again, you can reconcile so many different things in astrology, and that proved it.
That's really incredible. Yeah, it's all in there. And as we were talking earlier about free will, it sounds like, you know, we're given, and that you know, we're gonna go all the way back. Okay, so you got this spiritual family, then you decide you're gonna have this experience. You know when you're going to be born, and you kind of are given a blueprint of how it's going to go. And you can either work with your spiritual energies and families and fulfill that destiny and do what you're supposed to do, or you may not. So a lot of us fail. That's the unfortunate thing. And then we got to do it again. Yeah. You know, we're forced to do it again. And from a compassionate level, there's nothing I feel more compassionate about is seeing people make the same mistake over and over and over, because I know that they're not really living their life journey. And you know, that's right. When it comes to age, I always tell people I don't really believe that age matters. It really matters in terms of development of the soul, because I've seen so many people, you know, of all age, you know, deep inside their 50s and 60s, still making the same mistakes they made inside their 20s. Like you were talking about the relationship issues, and we're blessed to figure it out the first time, you know, where you see people live their whole life and they're doomed to make these same mistakes. And I think astrology is a beautiful thing because it can put that inside perspective and show you, hey, you know, there is a little bit of a blueprint here. You know, we're not born with instructions, but there are things that we can, you know, pull from ancient wisdom, from, you know, our ancestors that laid this before us, and give us a better sense of where to move forward. And people like you that really dive deep into it and spend the time and effort, getting past the stigma of, oh, this is just some crazy shit. Because really, that's what most people feel when you start to read into, like, you know, your rising signs and you get deep into astrology. You go down this wormhole, and sometimes you're just not ready for it. But you've inspired me today just from this conversation. I want to pick up a couple of books and get a little bit deeper, because I'm always trying to grow on my spiritual path. Do you have any suggestions of where to start?
What I would say, I love everything that you mentioned regarding, using astrology to basically be a guide, because there's so much there. There's information about what you did in past lives. There's information about what you're supposed to do here, what your strengths are, your weaknesses. So I think for most people, you know how we'll check the weather before we do anything? Like, if you know it's going to rain, you're probably not going to go get your hair done in some extravagant fashion that'll, get ruined by the rain.
Sure.
Right.
Astrology is knowing that, you know what I mean? So knowing the energetic weather, as I call it, is equally as important. What I would say to people to kind of get yourselves on track, of course you have free will. You're welcome at any time to do whatever you want. But if you want to understand your patterns, your natural instinctual reactions, even vocations that are more your speed, the type of partners that are more your speed, get your birth chart done. And even though, yes, I do them, I charge people for them because it takes a lot of time. But I would say anybody could go and get a free astrology birth chart just to be able to have a glimpse of what's going on. They could start kind of there, because interestingly enough, and you guys can check this guy out on YouTube if you get a chance, the person who really got me to understand that astrology is in everything. And when I say everything, I mean anything you can think of. The Bible, fairy tales, all the archetypes. His name is Santo Spinaci. So if you can check him out, he does this thing called syncretism.
How do you spell
where
his name?
he basically,
Oh, I was just going to ask you how to spell his last name.
Oh, sure. It's B-O-N as in Nancy.
Uh-huh.
A, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, I. So Santo Spinaci. He is an Italian guy from Australia. He's got an interesting accent. But when I tell you that I would watch the same stuff from him over and over and over again, because I couldn't believe how he could draw everything together. It blew my mind. Absolutely. He is amazing.
I'm excited.
So
to
if
check
you can
him
look
out.
for his syncretism, yeah, definitely check him out, guys. I think you'd find a lot of beauty in what he has to say.
Well, Illy, how could people, how can they get their, do you offer doing people's charts through your website or through,
Yeah.
if you want to let our viewers know where, or listeners know,
We'll go ahead and post it inside the
Sure.
notes, but
For the-
for the people that like to listen, sure.
Yeah, the people that don't want to do a lot of, maybe they're just listening and they want to Google it.
Might be
don't know.
driving, sure.
We'd like to.
Sure. Well, you can. No problem. I just started the website for the Spiritual Gangsta Certified podcast. So to contact me, you can do it through there, spiritualgangstacertified.com, or you can email me. Illyvish is a name that I took on as a rap name essentially. But it came from me using an old name that I used to use. I'm from Philadelphia, and we used to call it the Illadelph. So you can email me at Illadelphia. So that's like spelling Philadelphia with 2 L's, no P, no H, ILLADELPHIA, and then Jones, which is my given last name, JONES, @gmail.com. And I can do all types of charts for people. There's birth charts, of course, which we've discussed. You can do a synastry chart, so you can see how your energy works with someone else's. There's also a composite chart, which would combine two people's energy to tell you what the relationship is like.
Oh, wow.
We have a progress chart because we grow, and then you have a solar return chart. There's so many different things. So if anybody's interested at all in having a chart reading from me, please do reach out, IlladelphiaJones@gmail.com, or you can go on the website, Spiritual Gangsta Certified, and Gangsta is just GANGSTA, certified.com, and I'd be happy to help people. It brings my heart so much joy to be able to help them understand themselves astrologically. It changed my life, so I'm out here changing others.
That's amazing. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's two things I love most inside life, and it's hip hop and spirituality. So it's been a real
Yes.
blessing having you on the podcast. You're definitely someone that I feel so connected to on just those two levels right there. And you're so wise too. I mean, I was actually asking personally though if there was any books that you might recommend if like I wanted to, dive into astrology a little bit deeper. Is there any like?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Please don't be insulted by the first title, because when I tell people it, they're like, "Are you calling me a dummy?"
Okay.
But to be very honest with you,
yeah.
Astrology for Dummies is a great book.
Okay.
It's excellent because it helps you understand the foundations. Astrology is about archetypes and keywords, and once you know those, everything else kind of falls into place. I would also recommend this book called A Spiritual Approach to Astrology by Myrna Loftus. I believe that's Lofthos. That's another really, really great book. And you actually had me go inside of I'm obsessed with having books in my phone. So I actually just pulled it up so I can look. I have a Google Drive folder with 900 astrology books.
Oh, wow.
That's how deep in it. I know. I get really, really.
That's really cool.
I love it. And the other one, I'm talking about this on my show currently. There's a book called Past Life Astrology. Use your birth chart to understand your karma. And it's by a lady named Judy Hall. I love the illustrations in it. They're kind of medieval, but it really helps you to understand the more spiritual past life side of things. So I would say start with those three things. And then if you ever want any additional recommendations, I've got plenty.
All right. I appreciate that. You always go through different phases in spirituality, and I've gone through all different kind of rabbit holes, but you've really inspired me to want to get deeper into astrology, because listening to you talk, I know you're seeing things on another level, and I want what you got. I really, really do. So I appreciate having you on, Illy, and we'll go ahead and definitely leave all those links for our listeners. They'll be inside the description box of where you can follow her on social media, where you can listen to the Spiritual Gangsta Certified podcast, and also the email address so you can reach out to her personally if you want to get your charts done and you want to feel a little bit of guidance, because it's really, really easy to get off track, and we've all been off track at least 5 or 6 times if we're adults. Some of us never get on track. So for all the people that the teachers, the leaders, and the guiders, and you're one of them, we love you and got a special place for you on the dot and in our hearts. Thanks for coming on, Illy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
No problem. It was my pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting me on, and the invitation is extended to you guys as well to come on, and I'll even bring some of I consider myself to be still learning as an astrologer even after 6 years, but there are people that I'm working with that I think you guys would really, really like. So hopefully I can have you on too, and they can uncover some more stuff for you, make that rabbit hole even deeper.
I would love to be on your show anytime you have me.
Yeah, me too.
Thank
Absolutely.
You.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to listen to this podcast over, because there was a few things where you blew my mind a bit. I'm going to, I'm going to listen myself a couple of times and write down those book recommendations. Thanks again. Love you, and love welcome. You guys out there too. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye.